Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters is my favorite anime. It's not perfect, but the nostalgia factor, not to mention the card game, and the fact that I was a huge ancient Egypt nerd when it first came out, means it has a special place in my heart. For this video, I want to get into the story of the titular Yugi, or rather Yuugis. How do they develop throughout the story, and where do they end up by the end of it?
今の俺は遊戯であって遊戯ではない。
Before we begin, please allow me to slip into something a bit more comfortable. Now that's more like it. This video will be divided into 4 sections, each corresponding to one of the 3 main seasons of the anime, plus an extra one to get into who the spirit of the Millennium Puzzle was before he was awoken by Yugi. In the Japanese version, they are both called Yugi, with Atem accepting this as his name until he learns his true name. For clarity, I will use the name Atem to refer to the spirits of the puzzle, aka Yami Yugi, and Yugi to refer to the boy who solved the Millennium Puzzle and awoke him. This video essay is based on the Japanese version of the anime, not the 4Kids dub. So with all that preamble out of the way, let's begin. Atem was born in ancient Egypt and given a name that's an apparent reference to the primordial god Atum. There isn't much we can know about him, unfortunately, as the anime never gives us more than a glimpse into his character, but there are a few hints. The first, unfortunately, is not fully canon to the anime. In so-called Season 0, before the story was rebooted and focused more on the Duel Monsters card game, Atem is shown as a morally grey, if not outright evil force, enacting judgment on those that pose a risk to Yugi and their friends. There's also a flashback in Duellist Kingdom with Atem doing this very thing to protect Anzu. We do know for sure that Atem sealed himself and the great evil god known as Zork away, using his very name as the key in order to protect his kingdom and the world from Zork. In ancient Egyptian culture, the name was powerful and meaningful. Erasing a person's name from artifacts and writings after they died was one of the worst things you could do to them. An example of this in real-world history is attempts at doing this to the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten. After his death, his monuments were destroyed and his name was left off the king's lists by later pharaohs. And yet, Atem seems to have willingly accepted this fate to seal Zork away. Based on this, we can piece together who Atem was. As Multiverse Cell Studio says,
just because Atem had no memories, this shouldn't affect his natural instincts or his brutal methods.
This makes sense to me. Amnesia does not affect personality or judgment. He may not have had his previous memories when he was awoken by Yugi, but the Atem we see is the same personality he would have been in the past. So, Pharaoh Atem had a strong sense of justice and was willing to do whatever it took to enact it, even if it meant doing things that were morally questionable. This isn't much, but it's all we have to go on. The Duellist Kingdom arc introduces us to Muto Yugi, a boy whose given name literally means game. By the way, this gives the title of the anime 2 possible interpretations. Either it means Game King / King of Games, or it could mean King Yugi. This arc is Yugi's story, not Atem's. The main conflict is that Yugi and Atem are trying to save Yugi's grandfather from Pegasus. Atem does play a part, but he's dueling and acting for Yugi's goals. As far as we know, he doesn't have any of his own at this point. Atem is, in a sense, an extension of Yugi, with Yugi's own grandfather calling Atem Yugi. That being said, Atem and Yugi have different personalities. Yugi is more kind-hearted, trusting, and soft-spoken. I doubt Atem would have allowed Exodia to be tossed into the ocean by that insect of a duelist, for example. Not to mention, Atem does not hesitate to enact judgment against those he deems worthy of his punishment. Much like a king presiding over his dominion of games. The question is though, is Yugi okay with this? I don't think so. Not completely anyway. After Yugi manages to regain control of their shared body and thus throw the duel against Kaiba, Yugi laments to himself that he can do nothing without Atem.
僕はもう一人の僕がいなければ何もできないのに
それなのに。
So my guess is that he feels powerless without Atem, and so typically accepts whatever Atem does because he is afraid to face the world by himself. The duel against Kaiba is the first catalyst that causes this to change. For the first time, Yugi is able to force himself to the front and stop Atem from causing Kaiba to go to the extreme of jumping off the castle tower if he loses the duel. What's interesting is that in Atem's duel against Mai, Atem realizes that this action by Yugi was not weakness, but strength.
俺は気づかなかった。いや、目を背けていたんだ。俺の心の弱さを補ってくれた。もう一人の俺の強さに。
And in realizing this, in realizing his own weakness in being so willing to let the clearly desperate Kaiba jump to his death, Atem manages to turn the duel around and defeat Mai. This, I think, is what allows Yugi and Atem to reach the next stage in their bond. For the first time, Yugi is able to call out to Atem from within the deep recesses of his mind during a duel. They are in sync for the first time, using their mind shuffle technique to turn the tide in their duel against Pegasus. And with the help of their friends, they come out victorious. If Duellist Kingdom is Yugi's story, then Battle City is Atem's. Here he starts his journey to discover his identity apart from Yugi, his origins, and then eventually his name. For the first time, he acts on his own, asking Anzu to keep his real reason for taking part in the Battle City tournament a secret from Yugi. He says he wants to spare Yugi the pain of his eventually leaving Yugi, but I suspect Atem is afraid of it himself and doesn't want to admit it. After all, when Yugi finds out, he's nothing but supportive. This isn't to say that Yugi has no character development in this arc. When Malik takes control of Jonochi and forces him to duel Yugi, it is Yugi who claims control and manages to free Jonochi. Atem is unwilling at first, afraid of how dangerous Malik is. In the end though, Yugi does what Atem cannot, again showing his strength of character and even his dueling skill. And here we come to the final arc, which takes place within a magical manifestation of Atem's past in ancient Egypt. For the most of this part of the anime, Yugi and Atem are separated, and we get to see just how much they have learnt and grown throughout their lives together. This arc is the climax of the anime, when Atem, Yugi, and their friends work together to defeat the great evil that Atem had been unable to do more than sail away in his previous life. While Yugi has his friends with him the whole time, Atem has to rely on people he has only just met. Even so, he forms incredibly strong bonds with them, despite not truly remembering them from his past life. This, I believe, is due to the lessons that being with Yugi has taught him. The power of friendship, a central theme of this anime. Being away from Atem, Yugi has the strength to help and fight for him. Instead of losing hope when he and his friends lose Atem a second time, he remains hopeful, and can even justify with logic that Atem has to be alive. Proud of her friend, Anzu comments to herself how strong Yugi has become.
強くなったね、Yugi.
And so, they defeat the final dark game. Not just with power, but with kindness too. Yugi and his friends willingly go hungry to give an NPC named Bobasa food, which allows them to find the secret of Atem's name. And Atem, who started this story with a tendency to depend on his own skill, has learned to see the strength in others, including and especially the other him. This is why it is fitting that Yugi is the one who duels him with the ceremonial duel. Atem has always been a prodigy. He almost never seems to struggle or practice the way other duelists do. He starts the story as the Game King, just by the nature of who he is, and has little doubt in his skill throughout the story. Yugi, on the other hand, starts the story thinking he can't do anything on his own. And yet he's the one who manages to defeat the 3 god cards and help his friend into peace in the afterlife. Yugi has grown into Atem's greatest rival, stronger than even his oldest rival, Kaiba. As sad as he is, Yugi is strong enough to know that he can hold his own, not only as a duelist, but as a person. From now on, there will be only one King Yugi, one Game King. Thanks for watching. This was a fun video to make. Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Drop a like and subscribe for more contents like this. Ivan Kenkwame, and I'll see you next time. In the Japanese version,